Hello, everyone, and welcome to Our Small Majority. I'm your host, Christian Black,
And I'm your co-host, Matthew Gorichkowski.
and we have a special guest with us today. Theo, it is so great to hear from you all the way in China.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It is my great pleasure to talk about COVID-19, and it's my great pleasure to share my experience and opinions with the audience.
Well, I'm sure that there are a dozen questions out there, dozens and dozens of questions out there. But before we get inside the nitty gritty on COVID 19,
hmm
what's being done right now internationally
hmm
and what can we do here in the States, just to get some ideas. How about we hear a little bit about your background? I know that you are a scholar yourself
hmm
and you're pursuing certain goals,
hmm
but I wanted you to go ahead and say that to the audience too. Just a little bit about your background and then what's your involvement inside the work you're doing in China today.
Got it. So I, how do I put it? I finished my undergraduate studies at Boston University with two bachelor degrees, one in communication and one in philosophy. And then I went to University of Kentucky, got a master's degree there, uh, majoring in health communication. And my well, because of COVID-19, I decided to take a gap year, but I will definitely get a PhD degree in the future. So my research focuses on health communication. Basically, how can we improve or how can we promote better social outcomes or a healthier lifestyle from a communication perspective or from a social science perspective. Mm, so what I'm doing right now is I am working at uh, a national health organization in China, uh, and I'm helping them with a lot of research projects, anti-smoking project, health literacy project, and the COVID-19 project. Yeah.
Before we go into talking about COVID,
Mhm.
I was curious how your experience was as an international student studying in Kentucky, because that sounds interesting to me.
Um, it was different. So uh, I started my study in US at the age of 18 at Boston, where,
Mhm.
well, at Boston University, I believe 30% or 25% ish students are Chinese. Uh, so I have a lot of Chinese friends there. Uh, the culture there was kind of a fusion of Chinese, Japanese, Korean, American, blah blah blah. Sorry for using blah blah blah. But when I
That's okay.
yeah, but when I arrived Kentucky, it was shocking. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was a very strange face actually, because I believe in Kentucky the Asian population is only how much 3%, 2%. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard or it's really odd for me to meet Chinese students or Chinese people in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, no authentic Chinese food restaurants. Uh, I'm not sure if it's cultural appropriation or not, but a lot of Chinese restaurants there are not Chinese restaurants.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's America.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, sesame chicken is not a Chinese dish.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like Panda Express and everything like that.
yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, let's get Chinese food, Panda Express. I'm like,
hmm
that's like all American, right?
Yeah. But honestly, everyone was pretty nice to me. Like,
Mhm.
because Kentucky is, well, I mean, in terms of location, it's not in the South, but everyone got the Southern hospitality. So, uh, everyone was very nice to me. It's, it's not very comforting to like. I'm very used to be around with Chinese people, but
Hmm.
in Kentucky, it's just hard because you don't have Chinese food, you don't have a lot of people to speak your native language with, sorry, your first language with. Um,
Hmm.
Right.
so it's hard for you to not practice because you don't get the chance to practice your own language. So in Kentucky, it felt like part of my identity was deprived.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, we went to Christian and I went to University of California, Irvine,
Mm-hmm.
and with Sharon, who introduced us to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have like a 60% Asian population
I know.
at UCI,
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
and a huge international
Mm-hmm.
uh, life there. Like there are so many international students there.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So it's very different from Kentucky.
Right. But I think I can see where you're coming from because like Kentucky is sort of like at the cusp of like the southern border, and people are like, "Oh, Kentucky, like, is that a southern state?" And I just know that me and Matthew have both been to like a few southern states. I've been to a lot of southern states because
Mm-hmm.
of my own roots
Mm-hmm.
inside of my family. We were like my dad's side is from Alabama, and then my mom side is from Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly what you mean when it comes to like Southern hospitality and like having a certain mood when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to, or a certain feel when it comes to, interacting with different students and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you take like a student in California
Mm-hmm.
and like a student in Nebraska, they'll have completely different, ways of living,
Mm-hmm.
and also even completely different demeanors as well
Mm-hmm.
because of the lifestyles that are there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can definitely identify with you. I can definitely relate with you when it comes to if you're in a different spot and you're not able to practice
Mm-hmm.
what you're used to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. My roommate, well, my ex-roommate, was also from Alabama.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Wow,
What
that
part?
must have been interesting.
I don't remember the city name, but
Mhm.
uh, she is so friendly and she's so nice and she's so passionate about like what she is trying to achieve. So she
Mhm.
fights for first gene student, like
Oh, wow.
because she is a first generation student and she knows how hard it is to like for first gene student to get resources, social support, and like equity. So her research focused on how to like help international. Sorry, how to help first gen student, and she got a job right now. Also at a education, also at a university, and her job is also about helping first gen student. Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, when it came to transitioning from the University of
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky and going back to China,
Mm-hmm.
um, after that culture shock and you went back to China and the current state that it's in,
Mm-hmm.
when you went back, what exactly was going on inside of China? Because there's a lot of news being thrown around
Mm-hmm.
and like, oh, COVID it's over here and COVID's over there, and this political outbreak and
Mm-hmm.
this and that. And I feel like that it would be great
Mm-hmm.
just to hear a voice that's actually over there
Mm-hmm.
and is familiar with the environment over there, with the political situation over there, and with the current public health
Mm-hmm.
situation over there as well. So what was that like when you got back, and then what is it like right now? Has it gotten any better?
Um, I don't know much about politics, so I'm gonna speak as much as I can, and you can unpack if you see
Okay.
anything political. Uh, so when I believe I arrived China uh, at the end of yes, at the end of June. Um, the it's so hard to get a ticket like back in China.
Hmm.
Um, but I assure you that everything in China is fine now. So
Hmm.
um, we don't have any existing cases in
Hmm.
In entire China?
no in my province.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
I
gotcha.
was about to say what?
Yeah,
I didn't
China's
see that in
huge. I was
there.
Yeah.
like, that's impressive. Okay.
Uh,
in your province?
in my
How big?
province.
What's the population in your province?
Uh, Maybe you guys can search it on Google. The name of my province is Zhejiang, Zhejiang. So I don't know how much. I don't know how much. Well, it's a very dense province, but
It,
I don't know how.
it says 57.37 million in 2018 people,
Okay.
Yeah.
and it's 39,305 miles square. So yeah, it is. It seems very dense.
Mhm. So it's okay to not wear masks now. Yeah,
Hmm.
because we don't have any new cases, so it's okay
Mhm.
for us to um, well, some public space still ask you, or it's still required to put on a mask before entering the public space, like the shopping mall or something like that. But
Hmm.
uh, if you just get out of your apartment, if I just get out of my apartment and then walk around, I don't see any people
Hmm.
wearing masks.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
And you feel safe and everything.
yeah. It's it's very safe actually. So
okay.
mm, when I first, how do I put it? Social distancing is not a thing anymore here. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's very safe. People gather around. I know there are a few new cases in the northern part of China. So they're getting, well, they still have a lot of fear and uncertainty there. But it's fine in the south now. So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, because here in America, I'm sure you've heard of how great of a job we're doing at keeping COVID at bay.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's like when this whole thing started,
Hmm.
I got a job. So I got a job,
Hmm.
an internship, like for film and
Hmm.
stuff, and I had it for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, everybody, nobody's allowed to go back to work, and we don't know for how long, and I haven't heard from them since, and I was like, okay, well, I was expecting this to not last long, some social distancing.
Hmm.
I did not expect the backlash that America, even though I live in America, I didn't realize how big of a backlash there would be
Hmm.
to social distancing and just wearing a mask.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering how, from your point of view,
Hmm.
from someone who's studied in America
Hmm.
and is working in public health in China, like what is your view of how America is handling COVID?
Uh, I gotta say, I was very frustrated by the U.S. CDC at the beginning of COVID. Um, I've been talking this with some of my professors, and they agree that a lot of credible sources in the U.S. like have been giving conflicting information. Um,
Hmm.
so I remember it was the beginning of March. COVID started to spread in the U.S. And then U.S. CDC said it was not necessary to wear a mask. And then later they changed their statement. Mm, it was very confusing for me at first because at the beginning of March, US CDC said it's not necessary to wear a mask, just wash your hands frequently, and wearing a mask is not necessary,
Hmm.
etc. But all the CDC centers in Asia, they emphasize it's necessary to wear a mask. So I was like, okay, what if two credible sources are competing with each other? Because in my field, there is a branch of scholars, or there are a lot of scholars doing health misinformation. And in terms of health misinformation, we always say that you follow the credible sources. But what do we do if two credible sources are competing with each other? Um, so, the culture of wearing masks in China, how does this culture influence the health scientists or uh, doctors interpreting their
Wow.
results? And then how does the US culture of not wearing masks influence their interpretation of like the results of masks?
Wow.
Yeah.
So why do you think they made the assumption that it was of a cultural aspect to wear a mask rather than a public health announcement and the citizens actually abiding by what professionals are telling them to do. Um, where do you think that even manifested from?
Um, I think it's big. Well, first, from my perspective, I don't think it is possible stu- uh, to conduct a lot of studies to test the effectiveness of wearing a mask in such a
Mm,
short time.
right.
So I even asked this. I even asked my supervisor here about why they encouraged people to wear masks at the first point, because
Mhm,
I was like, there's no way, like, COVID started so quickly. There's no way you guys can conduct like a bunch of studies to test the
Mhm.
effectiveness. And my supervisor told me that they gave this advice based on previous experience with H1N1 with SARS. So their advice came from their previous experience fighting pandemic.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure why. Uh, well, I'm not sure why a lot of U.S. scientists or a lot of public health scholars in U.S. believe it was a culture thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's has a lot to do with politics and power, and it's not fair. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
mm,
I don't know if you recently heard. I think his name was Herman Cain.
Mm-hmm. No.
He was a politician,
Mm-hmm.
and he was denying. He was like COVID isn't that bad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got sick due to COVID, and he just died because of COVID.
Well,
And what happened was he said COVID isn't that bad. Then you see a photo of him at a Trump rally where nobody's wearing a mask, saying like
okay.
no, they can't stop us. And then you see a news article saying
Mm-hmm.
that he died from COVID. And his staff who run his Twitter account
Mm-hmm.
were posting hours before he died.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sick with COVID for a month in the hospital. And hours until he died, his staff members were still saying how COVID isn't bad.
mhm,
And then he dies. And it's like the irony of it. You know, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
is that even worth it? Saying that, like other people, like the U.S. has like a quarter of the world's death from COVID, and
Mm-hmm.
they're still politicians
Mm-hmm.
who are playing games with it, you know.
Well,
And it's like it's just awful.
I know, because how do I put it? From a quantitative perspective, uh,
mhm,
in terms of the death rate, COVID is not that bad compared with uh, HIV or AIDS.
mhm,
But from a qualitative perspective, everyone's life is valuable, right? Like,
Hmm.
uh, I mean, the death rate of COVID is from 5% to 10%, right? But it's still life. Like, everyone's life
mm,
should be protected, uh, and everyone's life is valuable. So I don't know. I mean, from a utilitarian perspective, well, when I say utilitarian, I'm ironic. Um, I'm being sarcastic. From a utilitarian perspective, yeah, maybe it's not that bad, but yeah, there's just a lot of but. Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I know in the U.S. there's been a lot of hate towards China
Mm-hmm.
for the spread of the disease.
Mm-hmm.
I know our president's been calling it like the Chinese virus and Wuhan virus,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been a lot of blame going around for how China handled it at first, trying to keep it a secret,
Mm-hmm.
and then it began spreading.
Mm-hmm.
What would you have to say about that?
Uh, did anyone say anything about H1N1? I believe H1N1 started in the US, right? So
Uh, I don't know too much history. Oh, the swine flu.
Mhm,
the one
I had
in
a friend who had
yeah.
it.
So
I don't know. I don't know too much history behind it.
yeah.
mhm,
So it's not. I don't think it's a Chinese virus. The single fact that reported the first case in China does not mean that it happened in China. Like maybe
Right.
it happened elsewhere. Maybe it was just us first discovering this and reporting this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the origin of this virus, no one have a firm answer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not trying like uh,
Mhm.
in terms of the attribution of responsibility. It will be a really hard question to answer because um, it's all about different arguments, different justifications, different evidence. The only thing we know right now is on the media, China reported the first case, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Uh, and of course, there are some news saying that COVID originated from other countries. So we don't know. Maybe well, uh, maybe from your president's perspective, attributing the responsibility to China will make everything better for him, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Pretty much.
distraction from the failed prevention that they did
Mhm.
in this country.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I think that's what that is.
yeah.
I think blaming China for the virus is just a distraction from
Mhm.
how much we failed as a country to prevent it from spreading. Um,
'Cause-
because that's
mhm.
that's you know that's what we do best here.
Yes. I mean, for how do I put it? So in terms of anger, usually there will be a transgression, right? Something's wrong, and then B, there is a blameworthy target.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
now we all know there is a transgression. Uh, well, then, uh, Mr. Am I? Can I say Mr. Trump or President Trump?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
Don't say President Trump.
okay, okay.
Don't say it.
So now we know there is a transgression. A lot of there are multiple transgressions. There are a lot of transgressions in US now. So Trump needs to direct the anger to, you know, someone that can be blamed and that is
Mhm.
not him. So now it seems like the most eligible, quotation marks, the most eligible candidate to be blamed for is China. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny
mhm,
and sad that so I took a class about the United States Cold War,
mhm,
but my professor was what he got his PhD in was modern Chinese history. So what he did in the middle like of class, like one week he flew out to China,
mhm,
to Shanghai, I believe,
mhm,
and he Skyped us for a class,
mhm,
and he had students there, like Chinese students
mhm,
that so we could talk to them.
mhm,
And this was in 2016, right before the United States presidential election.
mhm.
And one of the students asked a Chinese student, "Who do you want to win?" And they said Trump. And we're like, "Why Trump?" And they said, "Because we want to see we want to see oh sorry, we want to see America do worse. We want to see it suffer." And I was just sitting there like wide eyed, like, oh my god.
um,
So like I just find that like ironic,
I know.
that like I don't know what your perspective is on it, but yeah, I found it ironic that like the students that we spoke to said we want to see America do worse, and then we have this president who's just like bad mouthing China constantly.
Okay. I uh, I did not know very much about Trump before the election in
Uh huh.
2016, but I remember every of my professor at that time was saying that please, please, please don't vote for Trump.
Oh wow.
Implicitly, not explicitly
Yeah.
point. Well, because it's not allowed to explicitly point it out to your students about that.
Uh huh.
um, but but I do remember after the election results came out, one professor just quit. Like I believe that professor was from Canada, and then before the election results came out, he said, if Trump wins, I will move back to Canada. And after the election results came out, he just resigned and then came back to Canada.
So this person you're talking about was in America teaching.
Yeah,
Was a professor. Okay,
at
gotcha.
Boston.
Not a professor in China. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes if I was a Canadian citizen,
Mhm.
I probably would have done the same thing.
Now I do not say if Trump wins, and now I only say if Biden doesn't win. I do, I don't even want to say if Trump wins again.
Yeah. So you're did we when you work in for the CDC in China, what exactly is your job? I'm
Uh,
not sure we went over that, but what exactly do you do?
so it's pretty flexible, I may say. So uh, now I'm following I'm following three projects right now. I'm more like a project assistant, to be honest. So one is anti-smoking project because COVID is still a thing in China, but now we pay more attention to the regular or previous other ongoing projects. So one project is about anti-smoking. Um, we plan on uh so about how do we monitor um public spaces, like because we have new policies saying that no smoking in public restaurants or no smoking in public transportation, etc. So now we are responsible for training the stakeholders, or sorry, we're responsible for training the restaurant
Hmm.
owners, telling them to put up the signs and telling them to persuade their customers to not do so. Um, we also have a health literacy project, which is assessing all citizens' health literacy. We do sampling first, and then we, you know, include, exclude participants in terms of their eligibility, and then we send uh, people to their apartments and collect the
Hmm.
data. And we record everything, and then we listen to the recording to monitor the quality of the data collection procedure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Another one I have is more about my own research. So I have three projects with COVID. So one is about, I know we're all waiting for a safe and effective vaccine to become available.
Yeah.
One of my projects is how do we promote vaccination behavior when this vaccine is available?
Good
Uh,
luck in the US. We
Man.
got a whole bunch of anti-vaxxers here.
yes. Um, the second project is about I'm doing a qualitative study, interviewing 35 uh, Chinese elderly, like from their perspective about what are the advantages of getting vaccinated and what are the disadvantages of getting vaccinated, and what are the
Hmm.
reasons they may want to do it, or what are the reasons that they may not want to do it. And the third project is I'm very excited about. So I'm gonna interview 35 healthcare providers who had direct contact with the patients. I want to know what kind of troubles they've encountered, and what kind of physical and psychological problems they've had while they were taking care of the patients. And I want to know what kind of support they've received, and how do they find this type of support helpful or not. And then turn off I'm gonna summarize their experience and turn that into a document and share this document with healthcare providers in the US.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. And even do you think that you can even expand like whatever you end up finding up from those healthcare providers or professionals, say that they use a certain type of therapy or methodology in order to speed up recovery or in order to, help certain populations? Do you think that it can expand further to either healthy individuals for, on the other side of the spectrum, like everyone that's practicing
Mhm.
self quarantining
Mhm.
and like mental health.
Mhm.
And because I feel like that's also a little overshadowed
Mhm.
during this entire pandemic,
Mhm.
is how to practice certain health behaviors in order to take care of yourself mentally
Mhm.
and also physically as well.
Mhm.
Because you see people always on social media, jokingly saying, oh, I'm not motivated anymore, things like that. And but at a certain degree, it's the truth.
Mhm.
And in addition to that, or at least here in the United States, we also have, this civil unrest. We have,
Mhm.
a current presidential election coming up, and
Mhm.
we're not sure what to do. And we have this pandemic to deal with, and it's so many different things that people have like don't really know how to take care of themselves mentally.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that would be really interesting to
Mhm.
investigate. Do you think you would maybe find that there?
Uh, Honestly, no, because the study population for this project are the healthcare providers. Um,
Hmm.
and the main goal of this project is to know what type of mental issues they've experienced while they're working 18 hours or 14 hours per day to take care of the
Oh.
patients.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the results of this project will be more like a guide for the healthcare professionals, um, for the healthcare providers in other countries in terms of how they can take care of themselves while they are taking care of others. Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah, that's another thing too that
Sorry.
I don't think even is really
Hmm.
addressed too much at all.
Yeah.
Like you sort of
Hmm.
get like a friendly pat on the back, like,
Hmm.
"Oh yeah, you're a hero, thank you." But like you have these professionals working
Hmm.
18-hour days or like not going home at
Yeah.
all, going to sleep inside of the institution, inside of the hospital, and they're sacrificing a
Hmm.
lot. Like what are the underlining or the long-term
Hmm.
costs
Yeah.
physically and mentally for these professionals? Um
Because
I definitely would be interested in, hearing about that and seeing where it goes on in the United States, because I don't hear anything about like how are they taking care of themselves.
there is actually a difference. So I remember a seeing a video on Instagram about it was one nurse in the U.S. Crying and saying that she has been working 13 hours per day,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
she felt so devastated and stressful. And but I'm gonna be honest with you, in China, not during COVID, a lot of nurse works more than 13 hours per day. So
Wow.
not for COVID, just for like before COVID,
Mhm.
because in China, healthcare providers they need to work like their schedule are crazy, crazy, crazy.
Mhm.
Well, is that good though? Like, is that effective? It seems like when you overwork your doctors and your nurses,
Hmm.
it affects how well they perform, right? How
Yeah.
well they could take care of their patients.
Uh, it's more like a tradition. Like the all the medical students, they've been trained like un, under this type of working environment. I guess it's like a lot of people are saying that Chinese students are good at math because they grow up in an environment that people always ask them to do math. So
Hmm.
I think they're still effective. Like it's relatively like the working environment is different or the training environment is different at the very first point. So yeah. Uh I'm not in terms of their performance, I think it's still good. Yeah. I mean it will be tired, but yeah, but they're still doing a good job.
Yeah, because I don't want my surgeon to do my surgery on my heart after working for 13 hours and and fall asleep on me.
No, they will not do that to you. I guarantee. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, in regards to,
Hmm.
actually certain practices and things like that when it comes to the procedures,
Hmm.
how did China's CDC tackle COVID-19? And I know that you told me a little bit about it inside of our messages,
Mm-hmm.
and how there was actually like a coding system almost in order for prevention
Mm-hmm.
to be possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear all these different, methods from
Mm-hmm.
different countries, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting just to hear, like for example, Ireland, in order to take care of
Mm-hmm.
the elderly, they expanded grocery store hours and said these hours are set for elderly people, and no one else is allowed this inside the grocery store,
Okay.
so they can get those proper resources. And you see different ideas and different,
Mm-hmm.
different ways in order to tackle this.
Mm-hmm.
What did China do, and how was it effective?
Um, So, in terms of the effectiveness of these strategies, I don't know. Well, we need some public health scholars here doing evaluation studies to tell you whether they're effective or not. But I can tell you the strategies. Um,
Hmm.
so, when COVID was crazy in China, I believe uh, everyone was quarantined in their own house, like no matter you are infected or not. Um,
Hmm.
I believe every household was only allowed to send one person out every 2 or every 3 days to get grocery stuff. Uh, you get an ID for it, like on that or on their card. On their card, they said, "Okay, you belong to this household, and this household haven't been sending any person out for the past 3 days. Okay, you're good. You can go." Yeah. So it's different. Like the house style is different in China. I know in California, like it's one block and then one house. In China, a lot of houses are more like it's more like a dorm or apartment style. Like most of the houses are apartment style. So there is only one entrance. Well, during COVID, they decreased it, and there's only one entrance, and there will be security guy at the entrance and checking your card. So yeah, so every household, one person every 3 days. That was one of the strategies, which I don't think is good, but I know like um, from a utilitarian perspective, it's really good in terms of decreasing social interaction and a lot of things.
Hmm.
Yeah, but in terms of autonomy and freedom, then
Do you do any contact tracing with technology and like your phones and stuff?
uh yeah, I believe so we need to download a software or not. Do you guys know Alipay?
Yes,
I don't.
I
What is
do.
it?
So
Alipay?
yeah, so you know WeChat, right?
Uh,
WeChat.
WE.
WeChat? No,
Um,
Mm-mm.
so
I don't.
WeChat is more like a messenger stuff, like it's a social media
Hmm.
software, or
Uh-huh.
it's instant messaging software. Uh, Alipay is more like Apple Pay stuff. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so these are two dominant applications in China. So we can download a barcode or a color code uh, in these two softwares, and then if we need to enter uh, a neighborhood or we need to enter a public space, we need to show that color code to um, the pr- gardening guy there or the
Mhm.
security guy there before we can enter
Uh
it.
huh.
So uh, the color code has to be green. Otherwise, you will not be allowed to enter that space.
So what would change it from green to red or whatever
I
other
believe
color?
we have red, orange, and green. So
Mhm.
if it's red, it means you need to be quarantined. You are not allowed to get into this city. You are not allowed to get into this neighborhood. You are not allowed to get on this bus. Yeah.
But what determines if it's red or orange?
Uh, for example, when I first came back from US to China, uh, of course, at first there was a self-reported survey like where you have been in the past 14
Uh
days,
huh.
and I said I was in the US Like I just came back from US to China, so at first my barcode was red.
Mhm.
but
Oh.
but I believe I believe one was self-reporting, but I believe they also know where you've been. Like
Mhm.
like they track your. There's some way that can track your what you've been done or where you've been for the previous several days. So
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I believe it was crazy. When I first got because of course when I first got back to China, I was quarantined at a hotel for 14 days. Um, so during that 14 days, the police office called me because when I arrived at the airport told the police station that I came back. So the police station called me and we managed and we did a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. And they asked me where I will go after the quarantine and blah blah blah. Basically, they knows all of my information. So I believe there are two methodologies. One is you self-reporting, and two is there's some big data guy behind the screen that uh, knows everything. And then if you pass these two exams or these two uh, things, your code will is green. Yeah.
Wow. Is there like a processing time for it to turn green, or is it just like, okay, he's good?
Uh,
Like,
I think how do I put I think there is a processing time for you to turning from red to green for sure.
uh-huh.
Um because I believe when I like after my quarantine, my code was still red or orange, I don't remember. Um so I called the police officer who contacted me at the first place. I was like, okay, I finished my quarantine and my test was like the COVID-19, the test. Um,
Mhm.
my test is negative. So
Oh,
why
okay.
is my code still red? And
Mhm.
she was like, okay, send me the because after quarantine you will get a note or a certificate from the
Mhm.
healthcare people at the hotel. Um,
Mhm.
so I sent the police officer my certificate, and she was like, "Okay, we will change it for you." So I don't know if the code changes automatically or you have to contact the police officer first. Well, for me, I
Oh,
contact the police officer.
What
okay.
so what if they just don't like you? What if they're like what if you do something they don't like and they're like they keep you on red and then they restrict your movement and you can't travel, you can't go anywhere. Um, is that a possibility for them? Like they could just be like, "Nope, we're gonna keep you on red."
Uh, well, you're speaking of power difference and humanity.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
uh, that's um, I don't think it's uh, I think that's more about ethics, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
no one is gonna no one is gonna do some. Well, for me, I believe humans are good creatures or they're kind at first. So they will do, yeah. There's no reason. Well, if everything looks good, there's no way they're gonna change your. They're gonna keep your status as red.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that I think that question stems from like our police, huh, Matt?
Yeah.
Like,
I got it. I know.
for example, since we have like me being an African American male, I don't have a very positive connotation
Mhm.
of the current police right now.
Yes, I know.
So so I'm just all like, what? I have to go tell a police person,
Okay.
you know, to let me out. So I think that even in that there's like a cultural difference or
Mhm.
just a lifestyle difference
Mhm.
when it comes to authority figures
Mhm.
here in the United States and in China. Well, I think maybe even another question coming from that is, well, can you like sort of speed up the process and be like, well, I know I'm healthy,
Mhm.
you know, I know I practice, you know, safe habits while I was in the United States, like just test me right now, and like would they let you even do that?
No,
Or is the
like
routine like
so
yeah.
so it's like I believe the policy, oh sorry, the rules are changing. Uh, but no
Okay.
matter what, you need to do the test upon your arrival. So you, let me tell you my experience about at the airport. So uh, I arrived Shanghai airport because that was the international airport. Actually, I departed from San Francisco. So I flew all the way to San Francisco or to California. And then I departed from San Francisco airport and then I made a transit in Japan. While I was at Japan, they tested my temperature multiple times and I did a lot of paperwork. And then I arrived Shanghai. Um, I arrived Shanghai at 5 p.m. ish. And then it took me 3 hours for me to get off the plane because they interviewed everybody one by one. And then they measured
Mhm.
everybody's temperature again. And then after the interview and then the mini interview and the temperature thing, they took my saliva to do the COVID test. And then we got sent to the hospital. We got sent to the hotel and quarantined there for 14 days. So, no matter what, you has to be quarantined for 14 days
Mhm.
because a lot of virus carrier they don't have the
Right.
symptoms, or they have the symptoms but their saliva just don't show. Like it is
Mhm.
possible for
Mhm.
some tests to not be accurate. So
Right.
Yeah, we learned recently that it's best to test twice within a
exactly.
2-week
Mhm.
time span.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So someone got tested twice. Someone just got tested once. And
Mhm.
I believe during it was in the end of April or in the middle of April. If you came back to China, you have to be quarantined at uh, your landing city for 14 days, and then when you come back to your hometown, you need to be quarantined for 14 more days.
Mhm.
So 28 days. And that's the real quarantine. You're not allowed to leave your room. They send the food to your room like every day. Yeah.
Wow.
So if quarantine, like seriously, I went crazy during that 14 days.
Really?
Yeah, because no human interaction at all. Like what I did is I look through the window, I count the
Mhm.
people walking by. Like I
Wow.
live on floor 5 and I just count.
Mm.
Okay, 1 minute, how many people will walk through?
Do you
Right.
have like a computer
I
or
do.
like
Yeah.
video games and stuff?
Yeah, I watched Korean drama show for the 14 days.
Mhm.
And of course I wrote some paper, like I finished my paper. Yeah, because
Right.
yeah. Yep,
Mhm.
so that was crazy. I believe the person who lived next to me, she killed her time by shopping because I heard healthcare providers or healthcare people knocking her door and saying delivery, delivery, delivery every day.
Wow.
Yeah,
What else are you gonna do, you know?
yeah.
Well, you were still able to like get in touch with like family members or loved ones and stuff like that in China. Be like, well, at least I'm home right now. I'm just being held in quarantine, etc.
Uh, you mean after quarantine?
Mhm. Yeah, during quarantine. So like after you were put inside the hotel and stuff, did you contact anyone? Like
Yeah.
anyone you
Of course I
yeah.
can talk to my family. Like
Okay.
it's just physically you're quarantined.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, you're not quarantined with your family, like, here in the States and stuff, and, people are like, "Oh, I'm locked up in my house," and stuff, and there's still that freedom of, "Well, I can go to my aunt's house." Like, no, like, you stay right here in this room.
No, so
So,
uh
yeah.
we after people coming back to China, we assign them to hotels. Like it's not your choice. You don't get to
And it's
choose.
paid for, right? You're not paying the government's paying for the
No,
hotels?
we're paying for it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So um uh, I believe yeah, 14 days. So um it's and you don't get to pick the hotel, which sucks.
So you don't so like if it's an expensive hotel,
uh,
you're kind of forced
uh,
to pay for that?
it will not be a very expensive hotel. Like all the hotels that are uh, ready for quarantine, like we will manage it to
Mhm.
affordable price. Yeah,
Okay.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
because I mean, expensive hotels are they don't maybe they're not willing to like uh, accept a lot of COVID patients. Because if you are the hotel for quarantine, it is not likely you can have like I don't think other customers will come to like normal or
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So yeah.
But I mean, now because of all that,
Mhm.
you're able to just in your province, you're able to do whatever and live your normal life, right?
Yeah, because
For the most part.
yeah, everything is normal now. So the cinema is open, and then yeah, everything's open actually. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So 2 weeks of isolation,
Mhm.
and then you are all good.
Mhm.
While here, nobody, it's hard. People don't want to isolate, and it seems like we're gonna have at least a year of suffering here,
Right.
because of the virus and people not isolating themselves.
And I also wanted to ask you in terms of people complying and
Mhm.
actually following that rule when it came to, okay, register on the app and stuff like that, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. How did everyone get on board with that? Is it a cultural thing? Because I know that certain countries are more collectivistic and like, yeah,
Mhm.
this needs to be done. We need to all do this in order to get over it. While as the United States struggles to do
Mhm.
that because everyone is like, well, I'm just gonna do me,
Mhm.
and you're gonna have to deal with that. Um, like, what were like some of the repercussions if you didn't follow that?
Uh,
If there was anyone who didn't follow that?
so I think we have really high compliance here. Very, very high compliance. Um, so
Hmm.
remember I said I had one project about how to promote vaccination behavior?
Right.
I don't have any significant results because everyone is like, yes, I'll get vaccinated. Yes, I'll get vaccinated. Yes, I'll get vaccinated.
Hmm.
So that's A, high compliance, and B, speaking of collectivism versus individualism, I think collectivism has rooted in Chinese society for God knows how many years. Um,
Hmm.
I remember when I was in another project, when I was interviewing the Chinese elderly, they told me a lot of surprising stuff. Like I asked them, uh, what do you think are the advantages, or why do you want to get vaccinated? If one vaccine is available, why do you want to get vaccinated? And they said, uh, because COVID, the pandemic is hurting the nation. The pandemic is hurting the economy systems in my country. So I gotta like it's a problem for the entire group. It's a problem for the entire country. So I have to do this. It's my responsibility. So they kind of taking uh, this problem. Well, they interpret this uh, COVID issue as an issue for the entire group, an issue thus for him or herself. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And another reason is that they said they don't. The reason they want to get vaccinated is because uh, they do they do not want to pass anything to the beloved ones. They do not want to pass anything to their friends or family,
Hmm.
or if they do not want to get infected and then be a burden of the family. So they
Oh. Hmm.
prioritize the well-being of others before
Right.
their own well-beings. So
Right.
I guess that's where you see the collective thinking.
Right.
Do you have any do you know any of your friends that think the earth is flat in China?
No.
I think so. I think a lot of in the US we have a lot of anti-vaxxers, more than reasonable, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I think they come from the same mindset as flat earthers, you know?
uh,
Like, and I think it's but besides that, I mean, like the US, we have a lot of individualistic thinking,
uh-huh.
right? A lot of people were saying like, well, if you're old or you have children, just keep them inside, don't stop the rest of us from going outside to party and have fun,
Hmm.
that's your problem, and then um
Is
I
that
remember like
true? Is that true that I heard that some college students they're doing a competition and see who get COVID first in the US?
that's in
Yes.
the South. That
Okay.
is
In the
so
South.
the United States is a big place,
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
and the South is very different from like where we live in California.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's I think from like I don't know exactly which college, but yeah, I heard that story too.
Okay.
That's from like my guess would be like somewhere like in Florida because that sounds like Florida.
But even so, like if you pan it back over here to California,
Mhm.
people in like college students in Orange County were all like, "Hey, I'm gonna have my spring break. I'm gonna have my party and stuff like
Yeah.
that." And they were throwing parties, and they were the ones that were causing the spikes inside Orange County. So it's like really selfish reasons.
Hmm.
And just because you're young and you have an immune system that is less compromisable to COVID-19, or you're more susceptible, or more well bodied in order to recover from it,
Mhm.
doesn't mean that the people around you isn't in more danger or isn't in any danger whatsoever.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's what most people here lack, is that they're not considerate of their surroundings too, and who they might affect along the way,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't kill you.
Mhm.
So, and I think another thing that needs to be identified is also like the financial burden of it as well.
Mhm.
And I know that a lot of people are like, well, I need to get a job because I need to eat, because $1,200 isn't going to pay my rent. That's groceries for
Mhm.
2 months. That's it.
Yeah.
Like I still have an electric bill, I still have my car note, I still have this, I still have that.
Mm.
So what did China do in order to make sure that its citizens were financially steady during this time?
Can you say it again? Sorry.
Do you know what China did? Like, did they put any procedures or any policies or like support into place for Chinese citizens to be able to feed themselves and like actually take care of themselves financially?
Uh, that I'm not sure. One thing, financially speaking, is that I know the government, like after COVID is semi done here, the government sent a lot of coupons to um, all citizens. So these
Mm,
coupons are like, the ultimate goal is to ask people, to encourage people to shop because a lot of coupons. Uh, and
right.
then with all the shopping, all the industries will come back. But I can tell you that a lot of stores, especially small business, are closed, like, yeah,
Right.
permanently. So
Hmm.
it was very hard for them, but
Mhm.
everything is getting better for sure because um, other companies they're not operating correctly. I think one reason is that we have the habit of saving. Like we always have it. Like we all Chinese people always have a savings account no matter what. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and they always put I don't know 30% or 25% of their incomes in the saving account. So
Wow.
yeah, even with like I mean, I know it's all about power difference. I know a lot of people in poverty they may suffer during COVID because they live on that salary, or
Right.
they don't have any savings. But uh, maybe my answer is not representative enough. But from the people I know, they are doing okay because they have savings, and if they don't have savings, I believe the government has some sort type of allowance for them. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we kind of have that too, right? With the
The,
right now we have unemployment that they well they were adding 600 and now they just took that away,
Yeah.
okay.
and they're trying to send some money,
Mhm.
some extra money, but politics.
Yeah.
So, like, when it comes to those coupons, is that like the equivalent of food stamps out here? Or are they like more versatile? Like, these coupons are like for clothes and things like that, or like for electronics and stuff? Like, is it just coupons in order to encourage like shopping and buy and sell, or is it like for essential stuff?
Uh, I think for everything, it's more like here. Well, I'm gonna use analogy. Here's $200. Go to Macy. Here is
Oh,
here is $500. Go to Kroger. Go to Walmart. Here is blah blah blah.
oh,
Something like that.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. And it's like the coupons like for specific companies and stuff like that. Like this is a Macy's coupon; it can only work in Macy's.
No, it's more like here's the coupon and here is a list of stores you can use it, or here's a list of brands
Oh,
you can use it. Yeah, it includes everything like grocery, shopping, traveling, also I believe, airline ticket, stuff like that. Yeah,
oh wow.
yeah.
And well, did like everyone get like an equal amount of like coupons, or does it like vary by like how much like your income, or
That
like how is that measured?
that I'm not sure because when I came back, that that thing has already passed.
Oh.
The only thing I know is they send it multiple times. Like it's not like a
Hmm.
one-time thing. It's like round one, go, and then after
Hmm.
a couple of weeks, round two, go, and then after a couple of weeks, round three, go. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Matt, do you think that that would be like, is that a better alternative here in the United States? Like, what's the pros and cons here in the United States?
I mean, with unemployment, we had every week or like every 2 weeks, we'd get a what six like $747 or something,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Um, and then they just ended that like
mhm,
this week or something.
Hmm.
And what's happening is they're trying to send in what's it called, the like $1,000 payment or whatever, $2,000.
The stimulus check,
Yeah, they're trying to send the stimulus check.
mhm,
a
But
second one.
I think what's ironic now, I'm not, I haven't read too much into it, but what I believe is happening is, right. So the Republicans basically didn't vote to reestablish the unemployment money, right? The extra 747 a week,
Hmm.
and right now they're blaming the Democrats um, for not approving the stimulus check. So they took away money and they're trying to send like less money, and they're blaming Democrats for not letting them send a stimulus check when they're the reason why unemployment, the extra $600 was stopped.
mhm,
Right.
I believe that's what's happening, and it's all like just annoying and confusing, and
mhm,
Hmm.
I don't like they're playing with people's lives, Like there are people who need that money to survive,
mhm.
who need it to pay rent.
Exactly.
Around my neighborhood,
Mhm,
when I walk my dog,
mhm,
every single apartment right now has a like a lease a rent sign.
mhm,
So there have been people. Every single apartment has people moving out because they can't afford it anymore.
mhm,
Um, and now these apartments are looking for tenants to fill up those places. And I've never seen this before, but every single apartment has a sign outside
mhm,
looking for people to now rent their empty rooms,
mhm,
because people just can't live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is very expensive, so like people just can't live here anymore. And if they're not getting support,
mhm,
they gotta move, And so I wish our government was more caring
Hmm.
of its people, and actually viewed them as living creatures and not just numbers and
Yeah.
things to vote for them.
exactly.
So I think we could definitely do a much better job than we are right now with supporting people in need.
Mhm.
Mm.
I think it's more about an equality versus equity thing. Um,
Mhm.
like, do you distribute the resources equally, or do you distribute the
Hmm.
resources based on like the real situation uh, each individual is going through? Like I remember a metaphor that's very interesting. Like, uh, if one like seven people are tall, seven people are short, do you give them a chair? Like if these 14 people are on a table, do you give them 14 chairs of the equal height, or do you give seven tall chairs to seven short people, or do you give and seven short chairs to seven
Yeah.
tall people? And I remember my roommate asked me a question: what if there are people that do not even get close to the table? Yeah. So yeah, it was very interesting. Um, I think it's necessary for the government to take actions to protect each individual in the U.S. country, not like more than just U.S. citizens, like every human being, like everyone uh, on the land of United States should be protected. I know, like, according to the law, or it's like the government is responsible for taking care of every U.S. citizen, so that's their responsibility. But from an ethical and human perspective, I think it's necessary for the government to take care of every, like, immigrants or people who are not U.S., like the alien people who are not a citizen in U.S. Like, I think it's the government. Um, they need to do something to protect them. Yeah, that's just my perspective.
Yeah, have you heard of the detention centers, like the immigration detention centers
Mm-hmm.
that we have over here?
Mm-hmm.
What so what do you think about that? Because I know right now in China,
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, but I believe they're called Uyghurs. I know that they're Uyghur, right?
Can,
Is that how you pronounce
can you spell it?
the Uighur?
You.
It's the Muslim concentration camps that are happening in China right now, mostly in northwestern China.
Let me search it.
Oh, have you not? Have you heard of that?
No.
So right now in northwestern China in the Xinjiang province, it's basically they have a bunch of concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um, they're calling them re-education camps,
Mm-hmm.
where they're essentially sterilizing and imprisoning
Mm-hmm.
millions of Muslims. You know, I think I believe it's called Uyghur.
Okay.
They're Uyghurs. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Do you know what? Have you heard of this?
No, but that sounds horrifying.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's in northwestern China. So that's interesting that you haven't heard of this, but yeah,
And it's like all
essentially
over
they're
our media instead of like what's going on. It's so crazy how like foreign affairs and things like that, and horrible things are always portrayed inside of the country that the president is bashing right now, and like, oh, look at what China's doing and things like that and stuff, but we're not identifying like how unmarked vehicles are taking protesters here in the United States.
Okay,
um
okay, I gotta tell
and
you
then now
that.
hearing from you, yeah, hearing from you, you haven't like heard about these concentration camps like at all, or maybe you just need to look it up in order to jog your memory.
well,
Maybe
I'm
you
I'm
haven't.
not even sure. So China doesn't allow Google, right? Google and YouTube and all of that.
Yeah, I use VPN to use
Oh,
Google.
Mm.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Are they allowed to know you use the VPN?
Uh,
But yeah, so yeah, it's
so
right now we have.
one thing I
Oh
need to
yeah, go.
tell you
Sorry.
that is, uh, in China, the government has a really big say in what media will show the people.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's very common for me to not know about the concentration center, because if the government says I don't want this to be on the media, then it will not be on the media.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's shocking you mentioned that, but I can definitely do a search.
Yeah. So for our audience who might not know, a short history or a short description of what's going on is basically in northwestern China
Mm.
in the Xinjiang province. Um, they basically they live near Kazakhstan, and their culture is very close to that of Kazakhstan's. You know, like uh, they're Uyghur Muslim group, and their culture is very similar to Kazakhstan. They dress like them, they dance, they have similar songs. And in China, that's a province that basically has a lot of resources. Right? I think I read something like 40% of China's resources come from this province, and a lot of trade routes to the east go through Xinjiang. And what's going on is Xinjiang used to be split. Like the Muslim group there used to have their own country, I believe, and uh, eventually with the Soviet Union coming in and everything, China took control of that area. But they're worried they don't want to lose it again. So what they've been doing is that they've been sterilizing the area, and they've started concentration camps and they're taking millions, they believe to be millions of Muslims, and putting them in these concentration camps, um, sterilizing them, like giving them shots so they can't have babies, um, possibly murdering them, and they're brainwashing them to believe in communism and everything. And a lot's been coming out. There's footage recently of like aerial footage of Muslim men with shaved heads, blindfolded, chained together, being put onto trains, and nobody knows where they went. On Google Earth, you could see these camps, growing. You could watch these camps grow as time goes on, um, and it's scary to watch. And we kind of have that in the U.S. We had the Japanese American internment camps during World War II, and now we have these immigration camps, um, that are happening. Maybe not to the same extent as China, but still like very similar. Where we ourselves, America, is caging children, separating them from their families. Uh, Apparently, we're losing children too. Like they're not keeping track of all the kids. With America's history, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these children are being trafficked right now. And
Mm.
so it just like, it's a scary thing. And with COVID too,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure COVID's devastating these places. Like with the immigration camps, I know they've been spraying I think there are photos of like
Mhm.
guards spraying these children and families in cages with some chemicals. They're just sitting there and they're spraying them down like a hose. And
Jesus.
they're getting sick from it. Some people are allergic, some people have asthma, and they're just being sprayed with this stuff. So like it's like a terrifying thing. Like we thought, oh, uh the Holocaust happened and we're not doing this anymore. But the world, we're still doing it. China's doing it. The United States, we might not be having death camps, but we still have concentration camps.
Right.
Got it.
So
Uh,
I'll just yeah. I was just curious what your thoughts were on the Uyghur camps in China, but it's interesting that you haven't heard about it.
okay. I was on this. Well, I was searching for the news, but with you saying with you saying more and more details, I know I don't need to search it because there's no way it will be on the media.
Yeah,
Hmm.
really.
Yeah,
Wow.
because yeah,
Wow.
like I just like I was looking at my phone, I was using the search engine, and then with you giving me more and more details, I was like, no way. I just give up. There's no way it will be on the news.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
as soon as you said, uh, brainwash the party, the
Hmm.
communism, the spraying, I was like, okay, no way.
Yeah, their
Hmm.
videos. I was researching this last
Hmm.
night, because I was hoping to talk to you a little bit about it. But yeah, there's like there are videos we have of these camps, of people, like of how, of them. There's propaganda too. They like China allowed some American, or I think BBC journalists or
Hmm.
something, to come in, and they like had a
Hmm.
fake presentation of what's going on, and like everybody just looks so great. Like it looks like out of a sci-fi film. People. Have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No.
No. Well, for those in our audience that have, there's a character from Ba Sing Se. Her name's Julie, and she's brainwashed, and she goes around saying, "Hi, my name is Julie. Welcome to Ba Sing Se." That's how it felt watching those videos. Like,
Got it.
yeah. Well, what do you? So, is this? I mean, is this something that you thought China was capable of, or like, does it surprise you at all?
Uh, let's see. It surprised me, of course. But
Mm.
how do I put it? Uh, in China, a lot of people, uh, it's more like, do you want to be a painful, intelligent human being, or do you want to be a happy pig forever? So it's it's horrifying, of course, and I know people are capable of doing a lot of awful things, um,
Mm-hmm.
especially when things are getting into power difference and politics and all of this.
Mhm.
Um, it's horrifying, and I know I I feel terrible because I know there's nothing I can do about it because
Mm.
I need to protect myself because
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's why we were worried. I wasn't sure if like that was something we should talk about or not, just because
well,
I don't know how surveillance is in China.
yeah, you can bring this up definitely. I'm glad that I know about this because
Mhm.
uh, for me, it's I always want to know the truth. Like I want to know more. Even maybe the truth will make me suffer, or like yeah. So it's really interesting you talk about this, and I'll see if I can find some information about it on Chinese media, news media. If I can find it, I'll definitely send it to you via email. But I doubt I'll find anything. Yeah.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, no, I'd be very interested in finding
yeah.
out.
And
Well, have
Like
go
uh
ahead,
huh.
sorry.
I was gonna ask if you heard about the Hong Kong protests then
That for sure.
for
okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that gives us some indication of how the news
Mhm.
flows. What do you think about, because we have a lot of protesting in the U.S. right now. So what do you think about the protesting in Hong Kong?
Uh so when I grew up, sorry, um everyone told me that Hong Kong is part of China. Of course, I know Hong Kong was given back to China in 1997, but uh,
Is Taiwan part of China?
it depends on which it depends on which epistemological system I'm using right now. But
Okay.
uh,
I have a lot of Taiwanese friends
uh-huh,
from school, and I ask them that question all the time.
uh-huh. Like
You get a lot of mixed
yeah,
answers.
it
Yeah.
depends on the like which perspective I'm taking right now. Uh, so from a Chinese citizen's perspective, I'm gonna say that of course Taiwan's part of China, but in
Uh-huh.
terms of like um, international law policies, okay, technically Taiwan does not belong to China now.
I see.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but in terms of the history, my passion for my country, yes, it is part of China. But yeah, you, it's it's a historical issue and all about. Uh, I was educated, or like I grew up in an environment that emphasized Taiwan and Hong Kong are always part of China. So
Uh-huh.
uh, no matter like even I judge everything from like as hard as I try to judge everything from an objective perspective, no, my previous experience or the education I've received, uh, there is something in my mind telling me that Taiwan is part of China. Like
I really like that answer. It's like that's probably the best answer. You're very self-aware uh of your biases and everything. I think that's really awesome
because
that you're able to think about it that way, because not everybody can do that and realize that kind of stuff.
yeah, I believe I think there's not like no argument or no research or no perspective is value free. Like uh, there's always something influence how you there's always something influencing how you are perceiving the world, how you are thinking about or thinking of stuff. Um, like
Hmm.
for me as a scholar, I need to know how my background, my culture, all the socio not socioeconomic factors, uh, my childhood are influencing my way of exploring the world. Uh, how like yeah, that's just I'm trying to be
Hmm.
as open minded as I can because I mean and I'm trying to be self aware because you have like I have a role in this society. I have a role on this world, and how does my role interact with the roles of others? How do my experience or how do my epistemological system influence how does my culture influence everything I see, I say, and I think? Yeah.
Hmm. Do you think your experience traveling outside of your country
Mhm.
has helped you develop that, or did you think that way before you traveled
Uh,
internationally?
I think I learned. I think my open-mindedness came from one of my theory class. So that
In
class
the U.S. or in
in the
China?
U.S.
Uh-huh.
So that theory called invitational rhetoric. So this theory teaches us that everyone's perspective is a result of their previous experience, their culture, their background, and everything they've learned and experienced. So, uh, how can you say your perspective is better than other people's perspective? And how can you why do you try to persuade others? Because persuasion entails that you think your perspective is better than other people's perspectives. So because everyone's perspective is, yeah, literally a result of everything they've experienced. So uh, it has multiple levels, it has a lot of factors influencing it. So now what I'm doing is I know what my perspective is, and I know how uh, I pull everything together. And I'm not sure, and like I'm gonna use Amy. I'm not Amy. I don't know what Amy has gone through so far. I don't know what happened to Amy for the past 30 or 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So now I don't judge. Like I try to not judge. If I judge, there is a voice in my mind telling me that please don't judge. You are not her. You don't know what she's been through. You don't know what she
Yeah.
has been through. You don't know why she made this decision based on what justifications. So stop judge every people. There is no good or bad. There is, it's just different. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's really hard to do. You know, thinking in that perspective, not everybody can do that.
Yeah. But I'm trying my best. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to Hong Kong.
Mhm.
We went a little bit off track there,
Yeah.
but I liked it. I liked where we went.
Mhm.
Um, so you're talking about Hong Kong
Mhm.
and the distinguishing it as part of China and not part of China.
Mhm.
So I know there's some history with Britain,
Mhm.
right, where
Yeah.
they took over
Mhm.
Hong Kong, and then there was like a deal of like
Mhm.
something like, all right, China will lease Hong Kong to Britain for 99
Mhm.
years, and then recently they came to a new deal
Mhm.
where they're like, all right, Britain or Hong Kong could have like a capitalist government for another 50 years. I think that was in 1997.
Mhm.
That was another deal that was struck up. Um, so what are your thoughts with, yeah, what could you tell us a bit of your perspective of the protesting, why it's happening, you know, perspectives from Hong Kong and China?
Well, so the Chinese media here, or a lot of people on the social media, are saying that it's a conspiracy of the United States. The reason Hong Kong is doing the protest is because Trump is doing something, or U.S. politicians are doing
Really? Wow. And then in the US we have Trump blaming China for a conspiracy. Wow. That's,
Wow.
who would have thought? Uh-huh.
because the conspiracy here is, Hong Kong, because of the special status, it's always a place for uh the politics, or for the politicians to, fighting against each other. So yeah, a lot of Chinese people in the mainland believe that everything was, it was Trump, or it was U.S. politicians' idea to for the protest, and then they hire people to do the protest. They encourage them, they brainwash them, and then and that is why all the crazy things are going on in Hong Kong right
It's
now.
interesting because we have our, for the protesting that we have here,
Uh huh.
Trump has been blaming, and other Republican politicians have been blaming protesters. They're saying they're paid protesters protesting this and all of that. Um, and the people that, like, you know, all the rioting and stuff,
Uh huh.
which has been coming out. A lot of the rioters
Uh
that are like destroying businesses aren't even part of the protests.
huh.
They aren't even part of the cities. With they're coming from different cities and towns, and a lot of them are white. Um, there's a ton of protesting going on right like down my street, and like I saw videos of it, and I saw videos of like I saw this one video of this one white lady tagging up this mall that's near our house, and then the protesters were like saying, "Hey, stop that! Like, don't be tagging these places, dude. Like, these are local business." They're protesters yelling at like other people to stop messing, like stop tagging places and stop all of that.
Mhm.
And so our government's doing kind of similar things to what your government is. You're blaming, or the Chinese government is blaming Trump for paying protesters, right?
Mhm.
And Trump is blaming Democrats for paying protesters in the U.S. So it's very ironic, you know.
Yeah. And again, the reason is because there is a public anger and you gotta direct the anger. You don't want that.
Somewhere
Yeah. You don't want the
have a
anger.
scapegoat.
Exactly.
Yeah, we know. I'm Jewish, so we know all about scapegoats.
Uh, Man,
Oh, I'm sorry to bring this up, but do you have any last minute questions? Because
Oh yeah,
I need to
yeah.
catch a train like in the afternoon. So,
Oh no,
Oh,
yeah, we forgot. For
oh, yeah.
us right now, it's 8:41 p.m. What time is it for you?
it's 11:41
A.m.
a.m. Yes.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I think this is a good place to stop.
Mhm.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun talking
Yeah.
to you, and I know I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation too.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Our Small Majority. We'll see you next time.